Hello, I'm Dr. Harper. This video is in project management. This is a lecture video on the overview of resource management. So let's bring in the notes. So project resource management from the 6th edition of PMBOK has a description of, includes the process to identify, acquire, and manage resources needed for the successful completion of the project. Now the different major processes, there's 6 processes, and you notice the processes are spread over the planning, executing, and monitoring controlling process groups. We will just look at processes 1, 3, 4, and 5. And notice 4 and 5 really focus on the project team. And for this overview, I will focus on the project team as a primary resource. So a little bit on background. Everything we talk about is co-located teams. And a lot of times you'll have virtual teams. They're non-co-located. They can be dispersed. But you can also have agile teams that are co-located. And so there are different types of teams for different types of projects. And so I will not distinguish between co-located or virtual teams or agile teams. It's just going to be teams in general. But the teams in general can also be broken down even more detail to the virtual and agile teams. Then we'll go into manage the planned resource management, where we'll have the different larger structure of organization, OBS, organizational breakdown structure, the resource breakdown structure, and then the RAM different matrices, responsibility assignment matrices. And then we'll talk about acquire resources, or acquire the project team, and then 3 different background information on developing the team, and then manage the team with conflict resolution. So let's get into the details. First, planned resource management. There are 3 organizational structure matrices that we'll look at. First of all, the organizational breakdown structure here. We will have the organizational breakdown structure will be the major organization. Where does the responsibility lie for resources, but also for human resources? And then you have the resource breakdown structure right under that. And here's where we look at the different resources and identify where the resources are before we identify where they reside. And then you have the work breakdown structure, and then the RAM and the Racy models. And so this is the hierarchical structure of the resources. Okay, consider the work breakdown structure that we've seen before in other videos for an RFP, request for proposal. So here we have the major divisions on the WBS, and then we have it's a 2-level, and then here we have the different work packages within the WBS. So the organizational breakdown structure, or the OBS, could say, okay, the primary at the top, you'll have these primary responsibilities in the WBS. Here are the different divisions and departments that are going to be responsible. Primarily responsible, it's the P. And then support functions are the S's. And so the department 1.1, 1.2, and 1.3 are primarily responsible for those major WBS divisions. Within Division 2, Division 3 will be in a more of a support function to departments 1, 2, and 3. But notice department 1.1, 1.2, and 1.3 also have a support function to the other departments. This is the top-down structure of responsibilities and resources. Then we go into the RAM models. The RAM matrices is all different versions of RAM. RAM is responsibility assignment matrix. It says where is the actual responsibility assigned, and it can be at a large level, a medium level, and a detailed level. First of all, a higher level would be the OBS units here of system engineering, software development, hardware development, test engineering, quality assurance, and etc. More and more and more. And so these are the different line functions within an organization. Now the WBS work packages are right here, and there could be more. I only had these 7. There could be more. But then they're going to say, well, the responsible organizational unit here will have the system engineering will be primarily responsible for 1.1 and 1.2, and then 3.2. And notice in some work breakdown packages, you're going to have a responsible unit and a performing unit. And sometimes it's the same. So here, 1.2, 2.1, and 2.3, and then 2.3 looks like the responsible organizational unit is the same as the performing. But it's not always that way. System engineering is responsible for 1.1, but test engineering will perform it. And also, an organizational unit, an OBS unit, could have responsibility for one area, but then performing other areas. So this is how it's spread out, and this is how it's organized from the OBS unit to the work breakdown packages. But then going more granular, you can have a RAM for the stakeholders here on who's accountable, who's just a participant. Review is required, input is required, and sign-off is required. And notice it's not necessarily, notice A has to sign off on everything. This is their project. But accountable input, review is required. So this could be distributed through all different kind of stakeholders. So here, this communication begins with a RAM, stakeholder RAM, because this is how the stakeholders will be communicated. We'll see communication in another knowledge area, but the responsibility assignment matrix has to come first to know where the responsible communication resides. And then getting down to the details, go from the stakeholders to the actual team members doing the work. And here's where you come to the actual Racy charts. Now, Racy is one of the more popular RAM models within a project where you have a responsible party that actually does the work, and it could be more than one. You'll have the accountable party that has the final authority of the work, and sometimes, often, they are different. So-and-so is responsible, but another team member is going to be actually doing the work for that workdown WBS package. And here I just have the major levels, but it could be packages as well. And then you have a consultant that supports the work, and Inform follows the work. Now, the Racy model is important because it identifies who is going to be who's going to have the final authority, who's going to doing the work, who's going to support the work, and who needs to know about the work as you go through. And so you have a Racy model. And notice for each of these each of these areas, you'll have one responsible party, and sometimes Ben is responsible and the accountable party. But you're always going to have an accountable party in there somewhere. And Elaine here will be consulted and informed, probably a higher level. So this just identifies individuals within the different work breakdown packages or work breakdown areas. Okay, then acquire the resources. Well, when you begin to put together a team, there are a number of things to think about. First of all, the team member for motivation and the team member for the duties and the performance. So the first level, you start with getting the work done. The project internal needs. It could be performance, doing the duties and getting the work done. They're very good at that. But also be motivation. They work very well together. This team works well together. Some are motivational, some keeps us on track. The other are very detailed oriented, and they can get a job done once they're given that job. And so some people keep us on task, some people get the task done. So the different types of project internal needs. Put together a team that works together on the detailed duties for performance, but also for the motivation. The second is the project expertise and domain expertise, and that's more of the management of the project. So here we will have more of the management of the project, saying, okay, let's make sure that we have the expertise as far as the project management knowledge is concerned, but also expertise in the domain experts. The difference between project expertise and domain expertise, project expertise, they know how projects are run. They know how to work within a project, how to manage a project, how to acquire the right deliverables at the right time in a project. The domain expertise has the quality of the content of the deliverables. It's the actual technical ability was done, the technical expertise is done correctly. So the domain expertise is the details. Project expertise is going to be the project details. And so there's where you have the management of the team members. Also, you can have people on there who are very good at understanding what is needed for the actual project. And then you have project external needs. And this could be, for example, representation. And this is for the organization. Now, sometimes you'll have people within within a project who is very good connecting the project with the organization in representing it and identifying the direction that the project needs to go, our changes, the integrated change control, but the representation and the organizational level should always be part of a project team. Now, this representation could be, and very likely is, the project manager, but the project manager should have other people at that level with them, with he or she. Other people at that level have different perspectives on the direction of a project within an organization. And then finally, once you understand the performance level, the internal level of performance motivation, the project level of management, and then the organizational level of representation, that has to be folded into face teams and virtual teams. Some people can do this quite well as long as they're co-located. And some need to be co-located and are not that good at doing this if they're virtually located or they're non-co-located. They're virtual teams. So, and we'll see here in just a second, when you develop a team, some people are good at that and some people are not good at that. That doesn't mean they can't get good at that. And therefore, you put together a team not only that can actually be effective at where they are, but maybe have others with them to learn from people who have the experience too. So putting together these resources are key. And as we see, human resources are the most important resource you have on a project. Because good people, I'll say this later, I'll say this a lot of times, good people can make a bad project successful, and bad people or poor people can take a good project, a perfect plan, and create failure. Okay, let's go on. Develop the team. Once you have the team together, remember the time nature of a project. They're going to come, they're going to get it done and go. Well, each project is different, and each integration of team members and how they function together will be different on every team, on every project, because every project is different. Well, we'll be looking at three different approaches here. First of all, the Tuckman model, and then the Myers-Briggs indicator, and then the Wilson Learning Social Styles. And these are three different perspectives of developing a team. Okay, first of all, the Tuckman model. The Tuckman model, also you can have training and team building, but you got to be careful with training and team building. These are to support the project. Training and team building should not be an objective of a project. That should be involved in the actual operations. So the Tuckman model. The Tuckman model has forming, storming, norming, performing, and adjourning. Maybe you want to pronounce that adjourning, but it's adjourning. Ing, 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 ung, adjourning. The forming. The idea of the Tuckman model is when a team comes together and they haven't worked together before, or there's new people on the team that have not worked together before, then anytime a team comes together, then there are these 5 stages. And the 5 stages in the technical model says first, the forming stage. Now, if you think about this is probably true for any type of group coming together. For example, a class coming together for a course, a classroom to come together that are co-located. When you have a classroom, there is the initial stage of forming. You form the relationship with each other, form a relationship with the instructor, with the course, with the environment. How's this going to work? And so it's usually it's business-like. It's very formal. It's kind of guarded until you kind of see what's going on. And initially, it's going to be leader-directed. And so when you walk into a classroom, or you have the initial meeting, which Waisake gets into the initial meeting of the team, it's going to be leader-directed. Okay, we are here together. We have these teams, maybe introduce each other, but it's going to be directed by the leader. The project manager usually is the leader, but it could be other people who are very good at this. And so so the whole idea here is bringing people together and start the project and start the work together. And then the second stage is storming. Well, since we're working toward a goal and there's more than one way to get there and every project is unique, this storming stage in project management will always happen. It'll be confrontational, there'll be argumentative. It says, no, that's not, we should do it this way. So there's going to be all different types of perspectives coming together, trying to agree, unity, moving toward a goal. And so it's going to be confrontational, it's going to be argumentative. And so the leader is more coaching how to do this. And as a leader, as a project manager, or whoever the leader is, you don't necessarily come down on one side or the other. You support the sides for them to start moving toward, to let all sides be heard, because sometimes the minority will have an idea that's going to be much better than the majority, but then you have to have that confrontational, argumentative coming together. And once you've come together and you hash it out, then you'll come to the norming stage. The norming is compromising, conforming, and here's, okay, we have all these differences. Now we have to get this done, okay? And if we're going to fight, one side has to agree to the other side, and we're not really norming, compromising, conforming, then we may never get anything done. And so when you come together and moving toward your goal, your deliverable of your project mandate and your project objectives and your scope, then that's leader facilitating. So the leader, the project manager or leader, the project manager or leader of this norming stage, they are not dictating what should be done. They are facilitating everyone coming to agreement so we have buy-in on both sides. Okay, I think this is better, but I see what you're saying. Okay, let's agree to do this because now it's going to happen. And at this point, I remember when I was I don't want to tell a lot of stories, but when I was young, I was working in the grocery store with my father. He owned this store, and I followed him around. He did remarkable things in a grocery store. He was very smart, very intelligent. And I said, why are you doing it that way? Why don't you do it this way? He says, no, I've always done it this way. It works. I'm going to be doing it this way. And I said, yes, but if you analyze it, this is going to be a better way to do it than the way you're doing it. And he looks at me and he says, maybe, maybe not. And he says, there's 2 ways of doing this. Maybe my way and maybe the right way, but we're doing it my way because we're going to make it work. And I go, okay. And but then it did work. And at a very young age, I began to realize sometimes it's not being right. It's coming together and being in agreement on making whatever we decide, making it work. And so you need not only a leader to facilitate the conforming, compromising, and moving toward project objectives of making them work. You also need team members who understand that. If this is the direction we're going, I disagree. But if this is how we're going to move, then I am going to try to make this work. And so part of the Tuckman model is recognizing natural human reactions to group dynamics, but also understanding that this is within a project to get the project done. Then the next stage is performing. And here you need to be productive, you need to be decisive, and the leader is going to delegate. Delegate to let the team members do what they're good at doing, let them do what they're going to do. Now, the delegation sometimes for project managers or leaders is very difficult. A project manager says, oh, that's not the right way to do that, this is the better way, this is my way. And by the time this is happening, you delegate it and you let the people do what they're going to do. And you trust them. Delegation is trusting, supporting, and empowering. And so delegation has to be done the right way. It's not letting go, it's empowering and supporting and delegating so that the people can do their work. And so that once you have good people, they're doing the work, they're working together, and then the final stage is adjourning, not adjourning, and that's closure, and I want to emphasize motivation. So the leader is celebrating the end of the project. You adjourn, but you adjourn with a celebration. And this celebration, the project could be wildly successful. Let's celebrate a good project. The project could be wildly failure. Celebrate how much we've learned, because we're going to come back and do this again better. It didn't work this time, but we're celebrating how much we've learned from our failure to come back and move forward. And I think that failure, and also the leader needs to celebrate failure in that it's the greatest teacher we can have, that let's not do that again. And now, let's come together and keep moving forward. And there's all different kinds of sayings I think are great or fantastic, like it's not how many times you get knocked down, it's if you get up and keep moving, that type of thing. And so they really apply here. And I think the team or the project team who has failed and come back, that is a very good place to be, because you're not going to do those. You're not probably, if you're smart, you're not going to make the same mistakes again. You're going to be much wiser. But then again, a greater danger, possibly, would be success after success after success. And the danger there is the celebration should be, yes, we've won, but caution. Don't let this celebration have a false sense of superiority, because you can fail. So you need a balance of success, like you can do this. Failure, be careful that you don't make a mistake. And so you need that balance between success and failure, and you need both to have a good team. So then you go to the Myers-Briggs. Now the Tuckman model is team. The Myers-Briggs is more individual. An individual, back in the early part of the 20th century, Myers and Briggs, mother-daughter team, began to develop this. They're not necessarily psychologists, but they observed that individuals have different way of working, and then it has been evolved and revised, and there's different revisions to the Myers-Briggs indicator, MBTI. And it used to be Briggs-Myers, now it's Myers-Briggs. The idea here, though, is that you have 4 different indicators, and each indicator has two different levels of it. And so the idea here is that the way it's used in project management, let's just jump to project management, is that each of these indicators, and there's 2 on each, so there's 16 type indicators, is that this is how an individual can contribute to a project. For example, EI is extrovert, introvert is the title, and this description is where you draw your energy. And what this means is how are you energized? How are you motivated? Where do you draw your motivation? Okay. For example, external or internal. Well, the external is someone, they work very well in a group. Some people work well to sit down in their own office to do this without people confusing them. Some people can think better with conversation. Some people can think better in quiet. But now, and the next is sensation, intuition. This is how you gather information. One is literal, the other is conceptual. Now, the literal sensation says, tell me what I need to know. Let me look at the rules. Intuition says, well, let me back up and let me think about this a minute. I see the rules, but that's probably, it means this. So one is literal, like it says this, we do this. Conceptual, it says this, it means this, okay? The other is thinking and feeling. That's making your decisions. One's logical and subjective. And the logical says, well, I'm going to make a decision just based on the rule of law. The rule of law says this, then I'm saying this is what I'm going to do. It's word for word, that's exactly what we're doing. Subjective says, well, it says this, but then the spirit of the law means this, and so I can interpret the law this way and then move forward. So the other is thinking, where you make your decisions logically. The other is feeling. The emotion comes in, and that's important too. Okay, to make sure those decisions are done. And let me just say here, subjective and feeling doesn't mean that you violate the rule. That means that you use the rule in such a way that it's helpful and supportive. Now, this is in project management. This is not in real life. Of course, project management is real life, but it's a subset of real life. Within project management, we have controls. It's not necessarily life practices. And so a lot of people say, oh, I am this way. And I think that's very, very dangerous, that you say, oh, I'm an extrovert. Well, maybe you're comfortable there. Does that mean you can't be an introvert? No, you can within a project. Maybe not in real life, but in a project you can. You're an introvert. Does that mean you can't be an extrovert in a project? No, you can. And likewise on all of these. The final is judgment, JP, and judgment perception works in structure. Some people work very well in a rule-based, just tell me what I need to do and I'll do it. And some work very well with perceptions. They're very loose. Okay, well, let's just start and see what happens. Okay, let's just work toward a goal. It says, no, tell me what I need to do. Now, that doesn't mean that, and this is about working in a work environment. And everyone can have a bent toward one side or the other. They are like ENTP. Some people are ISTJ or ISFJ. So they have a certain type naturally, possibly. But that doesn't mean that they can't have another type. And what I've seen in my experience is that the types are not necessarily about the people. It's the people need to understand how the types work together within a project. And a person says, oh, I need to be more introverted with this, and they can be. Or I need to be more extroverted feeling with this, extroverted thinking or extroverted feeling, then they can do that. So a person can, an individual, a team member, can move back and forth between these types within a project. Now within life, a lot of times they have a bent toward, they're comfortable with one or the other. One or a group of types that are more toward their personality. That doesn't mean they can't change within a project. Smart people, intelligent people, talented people, competent people can move between types and have more than one type when needed. And that's why you need team members who understand what is needed for a team to move forward. Individually, for the Myers-Briggs, but also as a group, what stage are we in as a group? Now finally, the bigger picture is the Wilson Learning Social Styles profile. Well, this was developed to look at different types of how social interaction is productive within groups. And they have 4 different areas, 2 different factors here with 2 levels each. Task-oriented, people-oriented, and reactive and proactive. And so this type of the Wilson social styles, the Wilson profile is very good on how to put together a team. Let's back up here. How to put together a team from the bottom to the top. Okay, and so you'll have different Wilson styles down here, and then you'll have different Wilson styles up here. And so putting people who naturally are very good at the styles at different levels of your project team. First of all, reactive versus proactive. The reactive, task-oriented is going to be much more analytical. Okay, and it says, well, let's analyze what we're doing. Wait a minute, let's analyze these tasks to make sure we do them exactly the way they should be done. No, it says this and this and this, and so it's going to be reactive to the task that's given them. But reactive, people-oriented is much more amiable. Well, I'm going to react to what you say. I'm going to react to what you do. It's much more amiable. Okay, fine. Well, let's do that because everyone wants to do this. Yes, let's do that. And there's where you bring people together, and it's much more of a amiable type result. Now, proactive is saying, I'm looking ahead. Reactive is looking at what's happening at the present. Now, proactive is looking ahead. A proactive task-oriented says, this is what we should be doing. We should be doing this. And so, look, you can say that, but then what we should be doing beginning right now and tomorrow and the next day, let's do this. It's more action, down here, action-oriented and task-oriented. So this is what we should be doing. Now, proactive, people-oriented is more expressive and saying, wait a minute, well, maybe we shouldn't be doing that. Let's think about this. Maybe there's a better way to do this. Maybe we can, it's more people-oriented in saying maybe we can come up with a better version of what these tasks are. Well, another way to say analytical, driver, amiable, expressive, which I like, is reactive, task-oriented, critical thinkers. They can think, analyze things in detail. And some of you might say, hey, I kind of fall in one of these 4 categories. Reactive, people-oriented is more followers. Okay, critical thinkers or followers, we need both. Okay, we can't have, we have too many chiefs, not enough Indians. We need to have followers. Again, let's say, for example, let's say I'm a critical thinker, but then we've decided on this, I need to be a follower. Can I shift from a critical thinker to follower? Of course I can. I will follow because I understand what needs to be done. Does that mean that I'm naturally a follower? Maybe not. I'm more of a critical thinker. Okay, I look at what needs to be done and analyze what needs to be done, but I can follow once we've decided. So again, this is not exactly what people, we're not tied to one of these quadrants. Now, proactive, task-oriented is action-oriented. Okay, we can think about this. Let's stop thinking about, let's do it. Let's just do this. And more action-oriented. And future thinkers come up with new ideas. More expressive. Wait a minute, let's rethink this. Maybe we could do something better. Okay? Now, the combination of action-oriented and future thinkers is that if we're action-oriented without the future thinkers, what could happen? What negative thing could happen? We go down a path that we don't want to go down, okay? But what about future thinkers without the action-oriented? We can sit here and think all day long and never get anything done. And you need both of them, and you need both of these working together, and both of them respecting each other, and knowing when to stop thinking and do, when to stop doing and think, make sure together and the future holds what needs to be passed off to the critical thinkers and followers. So you need all four of them. You need all four of them. And if you miss one, then you could have a problem. And so if you're a project manager looking at your team, and your team looking at your team and looking at project manager, what contribution do you have as a team member, and how you direct your team as a project manager to make sure all four of these are together as we move forward. Because every project is unique and it's time dependent. It has to get done. So the project manager must be sensitive to the team members and to be sensitive to the dynamic nature of the characteristic within team members. That's what I've been talking about. Dynamic nature, it changes. It changes. It changes. Interaction of characteristics between the team members. The project manager, since they're a leader, has to look at the interaction of these characteristics. And sometimes, let's back up here in the attainment model, and sometimes that interaction, where is it? Way up here. Oh, I think I passed it. It was right above. I passed it way a long time ago. Sometimes the interaction is going to be here, the norming, facilitating, okay, or maybe even performing. And so the interaction of the project manager with these Wilson styles is between the team members to make sure that they come together and they norm and perform productively within time. And finally, expression of characteristics from the team members. Okay, the project manager must be sensitive to different team members expressing what they have a natural propensity toward, and what they need to support, and how they need to shift and support an area where they're needed. Okay, an expression of these characteristics and also management of these characteristics. Now, this project manager applies this to the team members as well as stakeholders. So not only team members, but also the stakeholders, internal stakeholders, external stakeholders, and we'll look at stakeholders and their project stakeholder management. Okay. Finally, managing the team. Well, in managing the team, I'm going to focus on conflict resolution. Now, conflict doesn't mean it's not necessarily bad, but conflict, if managed correctly, can be very positive, can be very helpful. There are 5 different evaluation stages that I'm proposing. 1, the source of the conflict. Where's it coming from? A team member, stakeholder, supplier? Well, if it's an internal team member, that's going to depend on how you address it. If it's a stakeholder, for example, a key stakeholder, that's going to change how you address it. If it's from a third-party supplier, an external supplier, well, then there may be a contract involved. There may be a service level agreement involved, and you're going to deal with that differently. So the source of the conflict has to be recognized. Don't deal with a stakeholder like you would deal with a supplier. Don't deal with a team member as if you would deal with a stakeholder. Okay, they're different. They're different. Okay, type of conflict. Is it technical, project-related, or personal, team-related? Well, if it's technical, then you might want to approach that with a technical approach. If it's personal, then you want to approach it very differently. Okay, and when people are involved and it's team-related, what type of conflict do we have? Now, it may be personal, team-related, but it may be more personal, but the expression may be technical. And when you look into it, it's not really technical. They're using technical because it's more of a team-related personal issue. And so what type of conflict is it? So be careful as a team member in resolving conflict or evaluating conflict is to understand what type of conflict it is. What's the basis of the conflict? Is it legitimate? In other words, it really does need to be done, the requirements. Or is it cosmetic? It's opinion, emotional. If it's cosmetic, it's not that critical. Maybe it is critical, but what's the basis of the conflict? And the basis of a conflict will lead on how you resolve the conflict, which will look at the mode of conflict down below here. So looking at the basis will lead you to how to resolve it. Now, the type of conflict is just identifying the type, but the basis of the conflict will lead you to the resolution or addressing the conflict. Now, if it's legitimate and it's like it's needed to be done, it's requirements, okay, oh, I think we need to do this. No, I think we need to do this. Okay, it's needed. We have to come to an agreement. We have to facilitate agreements here pretty quickly. The level of conflict, high or low. In other words, what is the intensity? Okay, what's a spectrum of the intensity, like a dial? If it's low intensity, then the resolution may be how to deal with it may be very different than if it's a very high intensity conflict. In other words, project implications or team emotions. In other words, the high level of conflict, if it's project implications, we need to address this because this could be failure. High level of conflict, high team emotions. We have to address this because the team emotions are extremely high. If not, then the team's going to break up, or that's going to be supporting project failure. If it's very low on project implications or low on team emotions, well, then address it accordingly. Don't overdo it. Don't overcorrect something that needs a minor correction. And finally, the solution of the conflict. Is it well-defined or is it ill-defined? If it's a well-defined solution, then approach that definition. If it's ill-defined, what I mean by ill-defined, there's no easy answer. You may be in a catch-22. If you do this, then this is going to happen, which is negative. If you do this, this is going to happen, which is negative. You're caught in a lose-lose situation, and that means it's ill-defined. There's a little bit of success, but there's a lot of failure on whatever you do. So what is the solution of the conflict? If it's well-defined, then get on with it. Define it and move on. If it's ill-defined, then be careful of how you define it. The solution becomes more important than the conclusion. Okay, in other words, project-driven conflict resolution. So all of this can involve either the project, the team, emotion, but everything for a project manager should be driven toward project-driven conflict resolution. The project solution deliverables, that's your focus. And sometimes the project manager actually has to say that. The way we are approaching this is to get this project done. Let's come together so we can get the deliverables. We can deal with other issues that really don't apply to the project after the project is over. Okay. Finally, the mode here. I have 5 different modes. There's probably more modes of dealing with conflict, but here, let me identify this quickly. I won't go into the detail. Now, this matrix right here. If we had a seminar just on conflict resolution of a project manager and a project team, I would take time to go through each one of these, 20 different cells. 20 different cells in this matrix on what does this mean? 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 I'm not going to go through it, but I encourage you to think about it. To think and come up with your own. Each person will come up with different examples in each of these 20 cells. For example, the mode of conflict resolution: collaborating, compromising, smoothing, forcing, withdrawal. Collaborating is detailed task, well-defined. In other words, when you want to collaborate, and so you bring people together, you have a well-defined solution. Let's collaborate. Here's our decision. Here's our solution. It's task-oriented, detailed, so let's just do it. Now, if it's well-defined, we can collaborate and come to a solution. But compromising, then, is needed when the actual conflict is ill-defined. Suppose, for example, opinion as an example. It's ill-defined. There is no easy solution here. We have to resort to compromise. So the two parties who I see A and party over here sees A, party here sees B, and there's no common ground, then you're going to have to compromise to come to the somewhere in the middle here. So compromising is only if it's an important conflict, will be one way of resolving conflict. Smoothing. Well, smoothing is when you have personality or emotions here that the different personality conflicts are happening. You have to smooth it over, and you're not really resolving the issue, that you're smoothing the conflict. It says, okay, my personality, I'm just mad. I'm just mad because I just don't like them. Oh, okay, well, let's just work. You're not going to change that they don't like that person, or I don't like their color of their clothing. You're not going to change that. They're not going to like it. Fine. You don't like it. Now, let's focus on the project. And you smooth it over. Okay, well, don't look at it. I don't like that. Don't stop looking at it. No, that's be careful saying that. But the point is, you smooth it. You smooth it over. Again, project-driven conflict resolution. And the next one is forcing. Interesting. You have, it's high importance conflict. It's detailed. There's no real solution. And you must choose, and only then do you force a resolution. In other words, I'm the project manager. It's my responsibility. We're not coming to an agreement. We're not compromising. There is no real single solution that we're all going to agree on. So I'm making a command decision. This is what we're doing. So let's all come together and make it work. So you force a decision, and then you appeal to the integrity of your team members that disagree, that come together and make this work. And there's where the team acquisition is extremely important, where they understand that. And therefore, sometimes you can make things work whether you agree with it or not. You're going to make it work. Okay. And finally, withdrawal. Withdrawal says if it's low importance, it doesn't matter that much. There's no solution. It's emotional. Whether you solve it or not, it's not going to make that much difference to the project. And so you need to withdraw from the conflict. Don't get involved. Don't get involved. You tell them to work it out. Okay, this is our mandate. This is our project direction. This is our objective. This doesn't apply to that. So you withdraw and make them work it out. I don't want to be involved in it. Because if you're involved in something that is low importance, all of a sudden you raise the importance, which is inappropriately raising that importance to a level that should not be there. And it's just going to delay the project or jeopardize the project. So sometimes you should not be part of a conflict, especially if it's emotional and there's no real solution. It's just a disagreement and it's not very important. Stay out of it. Finally, consideration. And I throw this out there at the end because this is a whole area that we could look at. When is it appropriate for the resolution of conflict to be transferred or delegated? Now, what do I mean by transferred and delegated? Transferred says, oh, I'm withdrawing, or I'm saying the resolution of that conflict is no longer part of what my responsibility. I'm placing that responsibility on someone else, some other organization, some other company, or I'm transferring it someplace else. The conflict is over there. You transfer it. When should you transfer conflict, the resolution of conflict, to someplace else? 2, when's it delegated? Now, when you delegate something, you're still responsible. You're just letting someone else handle it. Okay? For example, delegation with withdrawal. If you have 2 people, 2 team members, and they are conflict of low importance issue, but very high emotion, then you might want to delegate that to each other. You guys work this out and lock them in a room, work it out, and then in 2 hours you're coming out and we're going to start working on this project, and you're going to work together. So you figure out what you need to do to come together and work. That's delegation. Okay, transferring is no, you're not responsible. Then you shift it, you send it off to another third party, let them deal with it. It's no longer part of your responsibility. When is it appropriate to do those things? Now, there is no, notice a lot of these are examples, and understanding the definition of dealing the modes of conflict resolution on when it's indicated, not indicated, and transfer delegated. Understanding that then will lead you to experience. And that's why project management is an art as much as a science, because every project is different. And here, if collaborating is indicated, then if it's indicated and you do it, but what if collaborating is indicated, it's not indicated and you do it? Then what's going to be the problem? If it's indicated and you do it, this is the success. This is definition of success. If it's indicated, or if it's not indicated and you do it, okay, what problems could there be? But if it's indicated but you don't do it, oh, you should be doing it but you don't do it, then what problems will you see? And if you do it but it's not indicated, then what problems should you have? So this little template here is saying recognize when you should use which mode and when you should not use which mode. And part of it is understanding the definitions down here. But the other part is action-oriented. What if you do it and don't do it? What if? Okay, here is the front-end definition. Here is the back-end acknowledgement of experience, saying, okay, if I don't do this, it's going to be okay. If I don't do it, I should do it. It's not that big of a deal. But if I don't do it, and I should do it, it's a big deal. Here's where experience comes in. Okay, and so this is a great matrix to think about. And also notice this is conflict resolution. Just a small comment here. People who are good at this not only in project management and other issues as well. Okay, and in business, board meetings, this is project management. This is not business management, but in businesses, in teams within businesses and board meetings, with vendors, in social environments as well. So beware of how you deal with conflict, and the way you deal with the conflict over here really defines your personality as a team, as a project manager. Okay, well, that's all I have for an overview of resource management. And if you notice, if you read PM Box 6th edition, there's a lot more in there that I don't cover, but I think these things are important on how to become an effective project manager. That's all I have for this topic, for the overview of the resource management. Between now and the next time I see you, I want to urge everyone to don't take anything for granted. Be safe out there and take care.